Hey, y'all, welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham, joined as always by my favorite co-host, Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, how are we feeling today, man?
I thought for sure, because I could see Callie moving in the background of my camera, I thought for sure you were going to say that she was your favorite co-host, just to throw me off. I was ready for it, and then you said my name, which threw me off.
Listen, she's a close second. All right, Callie. I don't want to be offensive to you at all, but Jeremy is my go-to. So it happens. It's all good. Hey, listen, Jeremy has put out a lot of good work over the past weekend. So we do have to shout out the folks who make this podcast happen, and that is RoyalsReview.com. You can check out Royals Review on X and Facebook at Royals Review. Game notes, analysis, game threads, commentary, all things that you need to honestly be the best Royals fan you can be is at royalsreview.com. So go check it out. Jeremy had a really good game recap up from last night's game, and then also his Saturday column was really interesting, put a lot of perspective. We will be talking about that column later on in the show. But Jeremy, we're coming about an hour before first pitch in the series finale against the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Royals right now are sitting at 1-1 against the Dodgers, getting their first win in Dodger Stadium since, what was it, like 2003? It's crazy.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was crazy.
How
had Aaron Gael, Mike Sweeney, Ken Harvey were all in the lineup that day.
Ugh. That's kind of gross. It's been that long, and yeah. I get it. Before this season, it was hard to not only face against every single MLB team in a short amount of time, but to travel out to face against them. So that's what caused the time jump. Yeah, but still, it's 21 years. It's a long time.
For a long time, it was every 3 years you played a different National League division, and you would only play one series. So it was every 6 years that they went to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. But that still means that they had two different scoreless series, I think, at least.
Winless, yeah.
Because 2003 they won, so that means 2009 they got swept. 15 they got swept. I remember that 2015 series. Ooh. Everyone was like, oh, this is going to be and then it was so hot in Los Angeles, and everyone was like, why is it so hot? It's not supposed to be this hot in Los Angeles.
Global warming.
Yeah, well.
But
that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that it is. A lot has changed since now and then. I love this piece of context that Josh Vernier put out on his post-game show last night, is that the fact is the Royals and Dodgers have both won the same amount of World Series in like 35 years. Like, the Dodgers have been outspending every team for nearly a decade now, and here they are, the Royals going toe-to-toe against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I don't think anyone could argue that the Royals have been equally as good as the Dodgers over that span, just in general. So that's it. Just kind of really drives home how much winning a World Series is not just about talent, but about luck and about maximizing your opportunities when you get them.
Which, Jeremy, let's go ahead and run down that rabbit hole, because you talked a little bit about the Royals' injury luck, and I think we're seeing that on Sunday, where we have Salvador Perez batting fourth in the lineup once again after a knee sprain and inflammation that kept him out of Saturday's game. Like, it just feels like this team is super lucky when it comes to injuries.
Yeah, that's at least the fourth time off the top of my head this year that the Royals have gotten very lucky. Twice with Salvi. There was also that throw that MJ Melendez made in the Mets game that he took the slide and we were worried about him. Alec Marsh took the line drive off of his arm and only missed 10 days. And then Hunter Renfroe, we thought he fractured his foot, but instead it's, I believe it's a bone bruise. Is that correct? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's a bone bruise and then just some inflammation around it. So I mean, he was up and like playing catch the very next day.
So he should be back much faster than they expected as well. It hasn't all been good luck. Michael Walker took the line drive off his foot, and we all thought he was okay, and then he was out for a month because he has a fractured foot. Then there's Michael Massey, who has really just been struggling with the lower back injuries all year long. So I hear he's taking swings again.
Yeah, that's the last report I heard. Then also, if you want some more context on Michael's back and like how that just plays into his baseball career, Ali's had a really good piece about that. So I would suggest
check that out.
Yeah, go in there and checking that out, because he was pretty open and honest about how that affected his collegiate career and his professional career. So it's just a reality that I think Royals fans are going to have to accept for right now, that this will flare up every now and then. We're going to be missing Michael Massey. But I don't think that Royals fans really can appreciate the injury, quote unquote, luck until we, just look at Saturday night's game. Yamamoto for the Dodgers only pitches 2 innings. And he was pitching pretty solid, but he exits with some tricep tightness. Which I'm smelling a little bit of bullshit there. Dave Roberts, when he was relaying the injury, he was pointing at he wasn't pointing at his tricep. He was pointing at his like forearm in front of the elbow.
Well, yeah, I don't know. He probably I would guess that's less a lie and more an amount of confusion on his part. Because whenever I first hear the word triceps, like, I know where the triceps is. Yeah. But I also, when I first think of the word triceps, I think of my forearm, and I'm like, no, that's wrong. Stop doing that. And whenever it's a pitcher, you're like, well, it's his arm. That's bad.
Yeah. And what was it? I forget where I read it, so I do apologize. But there was some lead up to Yamamoto's start on Saturday that caused some confusion, some tightness. Yamamoto took responsibility, saying like, hey, I wanted to be out there. I recognized that I was experiencing a little bit of tightness, and once it got worse, I brought that up to the coaching staff. But all in all, what that led to was an impromptu bullpen game from the Dodgers for the most part. And the Royals sprung on that and did most of the damage against the bullpen arms. Like, Jeremy, I think that's some of the luck that really transits to the win-loss column. You know what I mean?
I just also have to throw out there that they did almost all of their damage against 2 guys who came into the game with 0 ERAs. And we're not talking about they made a couple of outings. Like Sam Long I think he's made 8 or 9 appearances now. Yeah. We're talking 15, 16, 17 appearances. We're talking a third of a reliever season almost. Mm-hmm. Maybe a quarter, but still, that's pretty remarkable. Now, every reliever in the history of baseball who has pitched a full season has given up some runs. Even Wade Davis in 2015 gave up, I think, 1 or 2. But to have that game turn out the way that it did, I remarked in my game thread ahead of the game that the lineup might as well not exist after Vinny Pasquantino batting number 3. So that was to see them come together and score 7 runs, especially in the bottom of the lineup, was pretty exciting.
So, Jeremy, speaking of the lineup, I wouldn't say I got into arguments with folks on social media, but like I was really defending the stance of manager Matt Quatrero going to Adam Frazier, pinch hitting for Nick Lofton. And I do want to get your thoughts on this, because if you go and you look at the numbers, I get it. The whole conventional matchup stuff does come into effect, but Adam Frazier is like notably better against right-handed pitchers than Nick Lofton is. Like Nick Lofton has the hot bat right now. Like if you look at his season stats, he's better than Adam Frazier, but most of Lofton's production comes against lefties. Like it's a massive drop off when he faces off against righties. But then Frazier goes up and, he has an ugly plate appearance, three pitches, all of them out of the zone, but is still a strikeout. Here's the question I have for you. As you watch baseball games, is it more about the process or the results? Because the process for me is like, okay, we want to put the best player at the plate for this situation with the bases loaded. Like this is a high leverage situation, but the results just really didn't work out in that situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I am very much a fan of analytics. and we should probably have a discussion at some point about analytics, maybe this offseason, and what they are, what they aren't, what they're good for, why they're not going away, etc. But my point is that if you're a fan of analytics, you have to be a fan of processes over results.
Yeah.
Because analytics are going to tell you what is the most likely way to get the outcome you want, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And I think what a lot of people who have a problem with analytics see is that, okay, well, you did something that's not the way I'm used to, and it had a bad outcome, therefore it is bad. And that's not, I mean, we actually saw this with Seth Lugo last night as well, where Gavin Lux hit the ground ball that scored the 2 runs that, if the infield had been aligned traditionally, would have been a ground out to end the inning. And instead it was a ground ball single. And Seth Lugo wasn't very happy. But the analytics say that shifting in that situation is going to get you more outs than not. So I get it. It's frustrating in that moment to go, if we'd done things the other way, it would have been fine. But I promise you, when you're using the correct process, you're getting more runs scored and preventing more runs from scoring. And pinch hitting the left-handed Adam Frazier for the right-handed Nick Lofton, when neither of them is an elite batter, when they both have obvious handedness splits in the 6th inning of a close game with the bases loaded and 1 out. And Adam Frazier, not only is he left-handed versus a right-handed pitcher, but he's more of a veteran. So I feel like he's going to bring usually you would expect a veteran to bring a better mind space to that at bat. Now, like you said, 3 strikes, not necessarily in the strike zone, and he's out. The results weren't there, but I think the process was, and that's been just a revelation for me as a Royals fan since Matt Quatraro took over this team, is that the results may not always show up where we want them, but the process is, if not impeccable, it always is visible.
Yes.
Whereas even Ned Yost, who I in the end, I love Ned Yost, his process was a little obscure sometimes.
Yeah, it really was. And that was such a strange time to try and learn like the intricacies of MLB, because some of the things that he did just did not make any sense. And it went against historical norms, I will say. Jeremy, I apologize. I just sent you the spray charts for Gavin Lux, because that was another thing that I kind of had to defend, is if you look at Gavin Lux's spray charts, Nick Lofton was in the right spot. Like, he was positioned correctly. That was just a good hit. And it happens.
I mean, it's like arguing that the second baseman should have been playing pulled over when a right-handed batter, for example, who almost always pulls the ball, slaps it just to the right of the first baseman.
Yeah.
No, it happens.
Yeah,
sometimes guys hit the ball where they don't normally hit it, and you just gotta eat it and move on.
Yeah. That's, again, I've said it so many times in this podcast. That's why we have 162 games.
Yep.
Because that batter is going to pull it 140 games out of the season. But those other 22 games, it's going to the opposite field. Yep. Right? It happens. You chalk it up as that, and you keep it moving. You did what would have served you in the majority of games.
Yep.
I do want to talk about so you had a great article on Royals Review about the value of patience.
Yeah.
And you talked a lot about Ned Yost in there, and I thought I'm pulling it up right now, but someone had a great comment in there about about like, okay, you give it a week, and then Ned Yost would give it another week and another week and another week. What was so go ahead and summarize up that article for our listeners real quick.
Yeah, so I was just basically looking at the players that Royals fans have kind of, including I think us at times, have wanted released or demoted, and how the Will Smith, Nelson Velasquez, and Hunter Renfroe had all been playing much better recently. I actually need to double check Velasquez's numbers. I feel like he's cooled back off. I also, because I wrote this Wednesday, I believe, Wednesday afternoon.
right?
before Nick and so I included Nick Anderson in there as well because he'd had 3 straight very good games, but 3 games does not a season make, and he did not look good Wednesday night.
True. He did not.
So, or it was Wednesday night or Tuesday night, I forget which. But he, so that was, I had a little moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to leave this in here so I can tell you that not only do you sometimes need to be patient to wait for players to come out of slumps, but you need to be patient when it looks like they're coming out of slumps to say maybe more than 1 or 2 games will be necessary. And I swore I wasn't going to say anything bad about MJ Melendez for the rest of the weekend, but I will say that I have not at any point during the last couple of weeks been ready to say, okay, that looks like a guy who is coming out of his slump, which has been pretty frustrating. And I remarked on him and how the Royals have been very patient with him, and I'm not sure it's paying off or will pay off. Though I will say, again, this was with the caveat of small sample size. Have some patience. Let's see how it bears out. But Friday night, he took a walk and had a single. And then last night, he had an infield single, and he had one of the best at-bats I've ever seen in my entire life that I described in detail in the recap, 12 pitch at-bat. Even if that doesn't end in a grand slam, which fortunately for us it did, the approach there of saying, all right, you're going to throw me a cutter, and you're going to throw it high because everybody's throwing me high fastballs. I'm going to keep spoiling it until you give me the one I can hit.
Yeah.
And he did that for 12 pitches, kept that, almost all of which were cutters, right at the top edge of the zone. Most of them, it looks like if you look at the box, the digital box, it looks like they were balls.
Yeah.
But in the moment with 2 strikes, you got to swing at that. It's too close. Ask Kevin Biggio, who struck out 3 times looking last night on pitches that ended up being closer than he thought they were.
Exactly. And I just want to say on MJ Melendez's Saturday night game, he had 4 great plate appearances. Even if you took away the grand slam and that ended up being, let's say, a strikeout swinging or something like that, he had a good process 4 times last night. And I get it. Like there does come a time where you have to value the results over the process, but gosh darn it, MJ Melendez just makes it hard to not believe in him, especially when you see the grand slam result. You know what I mean?
Brian O'Hearn always killed me with that because his process was always impeccable to me.
Yeah.
And the results just never showed up until he went to, except for, that first half season, but it didn't show up again until he went to Baltimore. It was I was staring at every at bat he had, looking for some sign that he was about to come out of it because I loved his process. MJ Melendez, I don't like his process most of the time. I don't like his swing. I don't like his stance. I don't like his swing decisions. But last night he did very well. So I credit to him for at least one night looking like the guy the Royals have hoped he could be.
Yeah, and looking at his numbers across the Dodgers series, through 2 games, he's 3 for 6 with a walk, a home run, 4 RBIs, and a run scored. Now, granted, all of those RBI and the run scored came off that grand slam, but still, like that's a pretty good set of numbers for a guy in the bottom half of the lineup, if you ask me. We're about at that 2-week point, if I recall correctly, of where he visibly changed his swing.
Just about.
So I gotta dive in and look at that, but I'm pretty sure one of the smarter minds over at Royals Review is going to take a look at that before I do. So make sure you go ahead and bookmark
RoyalsReview.com. But somebody will do it, and it'll be an excellent article, and I look forward to reading it.
Of course. Like I said, go and bookmark RoyalsReview.com. Even if it's not one of our great minds, someone around baseball is going to notice that. Go ahead.
Yeah. There are so many great writers. For when you said it, even if it isn't our great minds, I thought you were going to talk about the other Royals Review writers. I was just going to say there are so many great Royals review writers outside
Yeah.
of the two of us. Max, the editor, Matthew Lamar is probably my favorite, but we've also got Preston Farr, who's running his own website, but also still writing about prospects for us. We got Greg, who hasn't been on the podcast. We're hoping to get him on again soon. But
Yes, we are.
You know, we obviously haven't seen him, but he used to be on here all the time. He's been covering the college side of things. I'm really looking forward to talking to him about the draft. We've just so many good writers over there. I can't say enough good stuff about them. And of course, I'm constantly referencing Seth 76, who I'm pretty sure is actually just a reader.
Yeah, which is just speaks to the quality of the community over there at Royals Review, because we get it. Trust me, it's Father's Day. It's Sunday afternoon. I spent most of the day writing about one promotion in the Royals system. Like, we get it. Not everyone has the time to write and put their time and energy into that. But just even our commenters, like, they're knowledgeable about baseball.
Yep.
And we get it. We talk about Pop-Tarts and we talk about otters and lettuce and things like that. But we just have fun talking about Royals baseball. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Let's see. I don't think there's really anything else that I want to talk about on MJ Melendez. It was just a great moment for him on Saturday. But if you look at his homestand, now I think that's a good chunk of games to look at. What was it? He was 2 for 19 in the homestand, but those 2 hits were home runs. He had 6 RBI and 3 runs scored.
How many strikeouts?
You know what? I actually don't have his strikeout numbers pulled up here. So if you don't mind getting
I think is going to be the key thing that tells us a lot about where MJ Melendez is at. Okay. So that if you're looking for an MJ Melendez breakout, look at the strikeouts.
Okay.
If he's keeping the strikeouts down, then maybe you got something. If the strikeouts are still up, then you're like, okay, well, he's hitting, but I don't expect it to hold on. I wrote that entering last night's game, his WRC plus since that Minnesota home run was a 54. Add his night last night, and his WRC plus over that stretch is an 85. So it's amazing what a grand slam can do over
it's crazy
a short span of games. He is all right. So here's the good news over that stretch. He's only batting 150, which is obviously not good enough.
Yeah.
But he has a 9.1% walk rate.
Okay,
which
that's
is
better.
You can work with that. That's higher than a lot of the Royals players, including Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. And the strikeout rate is 20.5%, which is obviously not great. It's also higher than Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. Yeah. But for a guy like Melendez, that's pretty low. So maybe he is coming out of it. I'm not going to – Nick Anderson burned me. I'm not going to say he's definitely coming out of it. But when guys are coming out of it, it's the process meets the results. And when I see a guy who walks on Friday night and a guy who works that at bat last night and hits that grand slam, that looks like a good process.
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't disagree. And I think that it's been a good process for this whole lineup because as David Lesky points out, I feel like we talk about this man every single episode.
We got to get him on the podcast sometime.
Yeah, we need to get him back on the podcast. I get it. He's a busy guy. Yet another like great baseball mind. Like could you imagine? I'm going down a rabbit trail real quick. Could you imagine if like Lesky was the beat writer for like The Athletic or something for the Royals? Like the amazing stories.
It'd be better than having no beat writer for sure.
Yeah, it certainly would. New York Times. Come on, listen to us a little bit. Jesus. But as Lesky pointed out, Royals hitters in June have the 6th highest walk rate in baseball and the 3rd lowest strikeout rate. Like that's so really
it's not just
good.
MJ Melendez.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's something we definitely need to watch after May and see like how they progress, into July and things like that. Jeremy, do you have any other major takeaways from the Dodgers series? I have a couple, but I want to make sure that you have your piece.
Live organ players in baseball stadiums should be mandatory is a takeaway.
Still goated.
I know most of you aren't even like consciously aware of it. I'm not necessarily consciously. Every once in a while, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, live organist, great." As I'm watching these games, but it changes the whole atmosphere to me to have somebody in there playing music live, feeling the energy of the crowd, not just pushing a button. And I really feel like every major league stadium should have that. And I desperately wish that the Royals would promise me that. If the Royals would promise me that, I promise I would be much nicer when talking about their new stadium plans. If they said, we build a new stadium, it'll have room for a live organist, I would be like, all right, let's have a conversation.
Well, Jeremy, I think you need to be patient. Okay. I think you need to practice. No, there are certainly some bits of nostalgia in baseball, and it's just such a unique thing having a live organist. And it was kind of cool because I had a little bit of stuff outside of baseball. The second part of the season of Bridgerton came out on Netflix, which is a very popular period piece drama.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about them is they do classical remakes of pop songs.
Oh, that's fun.
Which, yeah, it's just kind of cool. And I think I heard some of those come through the broadcast, like the organist there in Dodger Stadium putting out like, oh, I know this song. It's just the Oregon version of it.
Yeah. That absolutely happens. One of my favorite baseball videos I've seen this year involved someone telling him that there was a Sailor Moon fan in the audience or something like that. And he played the Sailor Moon theme. I definitely heard him playing the Game of Thrones theme at one point. He's very organist the Dodgers has is also very talented.
Yes.
And good at, again, reading the crowd and knowing kind of where to play. And he's willing to listen to people and play some favorites. And I just have a lot of praise for him.
Yeah, and it's just another talented person out there doing great things to elevate the sport of baseball.
And it's one more moment where people doing art is better and more fun than robots or machines doing art. Like, yeah, anybody can press a button and it'll play the song. And that's good. I'm not saying get rid of CDs. I'm not saying get rid of records or whatever. I'm just saying, like, when you have an opportunity to do some live music, do some live music.
Yeah. And no offense to Shaquille O'Neal, but I would like some more consistent and high quality live music than DJ Diesel. Okay, let's go ahead and
I have no idea what that references to, and that's okay.
So Shaquille O'Neal's DJ name is DJ Diesel, and he's playing in Kauffman Stadium this year.
Shaquille O'Neal is playing the music at Kauffman Stadium.
Yes,
That doesn't sound real.
I'm gonna send you a link to it right now. If folks can hear me typing, that's why I am.
My goodness. I thought Randy Johnson becoming a sports photographer was wild.
Which I do want to say this: Randy Johnson just looks like a sports photographer. Like if you shrunk Randy Johnson down by about a foot, he looks like a sports photographer. It just fits.
Okay, so Shaq is playing a post game show one night. Yeah. Not like he's not just there all the time. Just like I'll play in the tunes.
Which, okay, let's be frank. If you just posted,
which is what I thought you were saying.
If you just posted it up out in the right field corner or something like that, that'd be like a huge party and a huge draw to any given game. I will say that. But speaking about any given game, as we sit here today, the Royals are on the tail end of this really tough stretch of games.
Probably the toughest stretch of games they will play all year unless they get to the playoffs. Maybe even if they get to the playoffs.
Yeah. You are absolutely right, because I do want to check out they have a strength of schedule marker on Baseball Reference. I want to see how that looks after they get done with the Dodgers. But as we sit here right now, they are 5-6 in this stretch against first place teams, not just teams above 500, not just, teams they're looking good in the last 10 games. No, first place teams. And if they win tonight against the Dodgers, they'll be 6-6, which I would be elated with having a 500 record against first place teams, and you're the second place Kansas City Royals. Like, that just looks really good to me. And that makes me feel so much better about this team.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think I was talking about earlier this year that still holds true, is that it is really easy to let your emotions overwhelm you at times. And yeah, the Royals looked bad against the Yankees. The Yankees are also probably the best team in baseball. I'm pretty sure they have the best record in baseball. I know I went and looked at like their last 30 games and they'd only lost like 5 of them or something insane. So to win one game against the Yankees is actually pretty impressive. At least right now. But so the emotions can overwhelm you. You're like, oh, the Royals suck. But yeah, 5-6, 6-6 would be amazing. I mean, 6-6, you're even. That's an even matchup. Nobody can get an advantage. That means the Royals are as good as the first place teams, right? That's what that would mean. 5-7 is like, well, we're almost there, which makes sense because they're in second place, and they can get there with a little bit of trading, a little bit of guys coming back from injury.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you look at the numbers, and I get it, there's so many people out there with baseball that want to go by vibes and not by numbers, and I understand that.
I get it.
I do understand it. I understand it. But you got to look at the numbers, because the numbers are telling you things that your emotions are hiding from you sometimes. Mm-hmm. And the numbers are telling you the Royals are 5-6 against the first place teams they've played for 11 games in a row by the time you've listened to this. And then they get a day off, bounce back a little bit, and they go to Oakland. And I would much rather play Oakland than any of those teams. And here's the interesting thing. Here's my thought, Jacob. About all this is the Royals were not playing well entering this stretch. And so it felt like a continuation of them not playing well when they lost 3 out of the 4 to the Yankees, when they split a series with the Guardians. Yeah. And we were like, they actually good, or they falling apart in front of us because they were losing games and now they're not winning them still. Going 6-6 or even 5-7 against teams of that quality is actually playing pretty well. Yeah. So if they can then go to Oakland, take 2 out of 3, sweep them, suddenly you're like, okay, things are starting to look up again. They got through that stretch. It didn't murder them. They did not. That's the big takeaway, is that the stretch did not kill them, did not kill their chances for the postseason by any means. So now they've got a chance to beat up on, universally teams that aren't as good.
Correct.
By definition, because those teams aren't in first place. So it should be an exciting stretch to see how the Royals respond to kind of surviving this gauntlet.
Yeah. And so I think another big thing of value is, like you said, they have Monday off. They're not forced to bring up another starter for a spot start, or they're not forced to try and put together a bullpen game or anything like that. They're just gonna take that day off and just keep the rotation rolling.
Have they announced that, or are we still just assuming that?
That is what Annie Rogers reported of MLB.com. So I'm taking that with
if she reported it, then that's happening.
Yeah, pretty damn close to gospel, if I will say. I trust her. So as we're looking at the pitchers that are going up against Oakland, which I am my condolences to that Oakland lineup. You have Alec Marsh, Cole Reagans, and Seth Lugo going up against the Athletics. That's going to be bad.
Those are my 3 favorite starters.
I know, right? But let's go beyond those 3 games.
Would you like to face the guy who has won 10 games, the only guy to win 10 games in the AL so far? Okay, well, how about the lefty who strikes out more than a batter per inning and had 3 straight games of an 80 plus game score late last year, including dominating the Athletics at one point? Or you could face the guy who just pitched 7 shutout innings against the Yankees. Who sounds like a good time? What's that?
And struck out Aaron Judge 3 times, right? Yeah. Pick your poison, which all of them, unfortunately, Oakland are fatal, I will say. So let's look at the next 9 games, though, because we're talking about the Royals rebounding and picking up these losses. Currently, they're still 10 games above 500, so I feel like we're kind of diving into the weeds a little bit.
Still in a playoff position.
Exactly. Still like not just barely in a playoff position, but like firmly in a playoff position. They have a multi-game lead in the wild card. So you have 3 against Oakland, 3 against Texas, and 3 against Miami. 3 teams who are all sliding right now, not just like they've kind of been hemming and hawing about in 2024. No, they're all like they've hit a wall and they're still sliding down it, just smearing down said wall. I'm not saying the Royals are going to go 9-0, but I think it's fair to say the Royals are
come on, Jacob, take a stand, be bold.
I can't be on Homer the whole time, but I do think that I can see them going 7-2 in this stretch. Even if they go 6-3, like that puts them, winning all 3 series and still keeping the good vibes going. And just that, what is that? That's 2 trips through the rotation. That is another strong set. So I don't know, man. I'm just super optimistic about this team right now heading into the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think that's what you should be.
Yeah.
Like you said, they've survived this gauntlet. They're playing some weaker teams. And then the interesting thing is at the end of June, they get the Guardians for 4. But that one's at home.
Yep.
And the Guardians hopefully will not be as hot then as they were when the Royals went to see them. So that's going to be, that'll be a tough series, but they'll have had a little bit of a break, hopefully. And the thing is, the one kind of bad thing, I guess, is that the first 6 games that are coming up here, this is part of their second West Coast road trip of the year, hopefully their last one. But they're playing the Athletics and the Rangers on the road. So those are going to be a little bit tougher. But some other guys prefer playing on the road. I think Lugo's been better on the road. Schreiber's been better on the road. So I don't know. Maybe it'll work out for him.
Maybe so. There's only one way to find out. And as I've said before, the best place to find out and enjoy the finding out process is at royalsreview.com with the game threads, game recaps, and things like that. Just really make the game watching experience a little bit more enjoyable, which, Jeremy, I'll be honest with y'all. These late game times have just been killing me. I've been falling asleep before the end of every game almost.
Yeah, for those of you who are unaware, we live on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So I was up writing that recap at 1 a.m. last night, my time.
Goodness.
I was very ready to be in bed, and I was like, nope, I got to look up one more thing so that I can make this look good.
Oh, man, look at you go. You are better than me on Friday when the first pitch was at 10:10 our time. Oh, my
goodness.
It was awful. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Jeremy, is there anything else that you want to talk about with the Dodgers series or with the big league club right now? Am I missing anything?
Nope. I'm interested to see how Brady Singer does today.
Yes. And I do. Maybe that's the last point. Brady Singer going up against Tyler Glasnow is a very interesting pitching matchup. I'm just looking forward to seeing how the lineup performs against Glasnow because he is, listen, this is not just, Tommy John recovery Tyler Glasnow. This is like, hey, this guy's in his peak right now, and he is doing everything he can to be an ace in this Dodgers line or a staff, excuse me.
I will say, not that anyone's going to be able to hear this before the game, but the one thing that I'm thinking about as I look at this game is that Glasnow, even now, doesn't go deep into games. The Dodgers don't usually ask their starters to go deep into games, and they burned 5 relievers last night. I don't think any of those guys are pitching tonight. Certainly Trinan is not pitching tonight. Certainly the lefty,
what was his name?
Sanda.
I think it was Rhonda. I think I said Randa last night.
Yeah, he's not gonna pitch today either. No. So that was 2 of their better relievers. Now they still have 3, I think, at least off the top of my head, really good guys waiting in their bullpen. But you might ask somebody to get a couple extra outs that you wouldn't normally have asked them to get, and that might be your downfall if you're the Dodgers.
True, very true. That is listen, an out or 2 does not sound like a large margin for error, but as MJ Melendez proved last night, that 1 out can lead to very, very big things. So
and how many games did they win on that homestand with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th?
My gosh, I need to.
It was at least a couple of them.
Yeah, I think that needs to be studied and just written about in a book, not in an article, in a book. I need to know about the 2024 Royals with 2 outs in innings after the fifth inning. Okay, that is cinema, that is literature, and I need to know more. One thing that Royals fans do need to know a little bit more about is the Logan Porter trade. So news broke this past weekend that the Royals were trading away catcher Logan Porter to the San Francisco Giants for cash consideration. So in essence, they sold him to the Giants. That's kind of how that looks, and rightfully so.
Sold his contract.
Yeah, sold his contract.
Not him. He's not a slave. Sold his contract. It's okay.
Well, Jeremy, it was a little odd when I bought Hunter Renfroe on MLB The Show, and I got a phone call from the Royals saying, "Hey, why did you buy this guy?" No, that's a joke. That's a joke. But yes, they sold his contract to the Giants. Thank you for clarifying that.
I just want to make sure we're not advocating for slavery.
No, we are not. Trust me. Minor league baseball players were already pretty damn close to it just about 5 years ago. So we've come a long way. We're not advocating for the return to that. But some further clarification also came from Andy Rogers talking about why the Royals not felt pressured to do this, but probably why they needed to make the move. Because Porter has been a solid catcher, but he's not on the 40-man roster, and he had an opt-out clause coming up that he could have triggered. From what I've heard from Vern, what I've heard from Rogers, is that he was going to opt out of his contract at that point. It's not like,
sure,
yeah, and if you're performing well, you want to go find a situation, especially as a catcher, who all these teams are struggling to find bat first catchers. Logan Porter probably would have found a job somewhere, and now the Royals sent him to the Giants for something, at least. That drew the ire of a lot of Royals fans, which it's hard to disagree with them. Porter just had a great story, and he looked strong. He looked competent at the major league level to close out the season last year. And then Salvi's injury did not help anything. It was like, oh, yeah. I bet you wish you had Logan Porter now. Before I talk about my next point, Jeremy, are you are you sad to see him go? Do you understand the move? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, you get attached to these guys sometimes, which is one reason I try not to pay too much attention to the guys in the minor leagues, because often is not their trade bait, especially when the team is playing well, as they are now. Right. But yeah, I think it's perfectly understandable. I think it's perfectly reasonable for Logan Porter to want to find a place where he can crack a major league roster. I also don't think he has a place on the Royals roster.
No, I don't think he does.
Between Salvador Perez and Freddie Fermin, who I wrote a little bit about in the recap last night, it's just there's no room for him, and he's not going to be happy as the third catcher waiting in Omaha the way that Austin Nola is. So that's just kind of what it has to be. I do wish that the Royals had someone other than Austin Nola to consider promoting if Salvador Perez gets injured, but it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's all you can toss it up to. So Nola still, he hasn't made an appearance since he got called up. Hasn't appeared in a major league game since last July with the San Diego Padres, and it's just he wasn't great in Omaha either, which just sucks. Batting 167 with 2 extra base hits and 5 RBI across 20 games. That's not what you want to see. But at the end of the day, he's a third catcher for a reason.
He does bring fully defensive abilities, and a veteran knowledge of how to call pitches, and he's learning hopefully the way the Royals want him to be calling pitches, assuming anybody lets him. I know I've seen Lugo and Waka calling their own pitches. I'm not sure about Marsh, Higgins, or Singer.
Dude, it was kind of cool that Marsh was calling his own pitches in his last start. So I thought that was really interesting. I really did.
Even if they're calling their own pitches, you want a catcher who feels confident in A, the game plan, and B, to be like, listen, I know you think you want to throw that pitch right here, but let's think about this for a sec.
True.
So I think that there is a method to that madness. I'm not super excited about the possibility of seeing Austin Nola play in a major league game for the Royals either, but
Yeah.
I don't see a better option.
True. It's one more positive note to Nola being on the major league roster is he did catch for Seth Lugo and Michael Walker last year in San Diego.
They pitched it to him. They pitched it to the Royals. They were like, do this. So obviously they really liked working with him.
Exactly. But I want to talk about the person who came up to replace Nola and Porter in AAA Omaha, and that is Rodolfo Duran. Not a lot of folks have heard of him, and I completely understand that. So I have a piece coming out for Kings of Kaufman tomorrow that'll detail all this a little bit more, so you could check that out there. But I didn't know much about this guy until I started watching AA, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch it for Gavin Cross and Caden Wallace and some of these other guys. But Duran just really, really caught my attention. And let's run down his stats in AA. So he's had 42 games there. He's been a regular everyday guy, whether it be behind the plate or designated hitter. Has a 144 weighted runs created plus there. Just absolutely slugging the ball with 563 slugging, 8 home runs, and 31 RBI in 42 games. It's really good pace. I think he had the final home run in the game where the Naturals set like a franchise record for home runs in a game. They had like 5 in a game earlier this month. Just Duran didn't make a lot of waves this season because this is his third organization. He started off with the Phillies. He spent 2022 and 2023 with the Yankees. And then he came to Kansas City as a minor league free agent. And he was in big league camp. He really was, but he didn't turn a whole lot of heads, and that's okay. But now he is like, this is a career year for him at the plate. And now he's getting the nod up to AAA Omaha. This will be his third stint in AAA. He made it with the Phillies and he made it with the Yankees. But those were all very limited times, I will say. Truthfully, it's very but Jeremy, what I want to talk to you and the listeners about is his stats in AA at the age of 26 are eerily similar to Freddie Fermin.
Mm-hmm.
Like very, very, very similar, which we give credit to Freddie Fermin for kind of being a late bloomer. He had that MVP season in winter ball, and he looked pretty strong. But all in all, he didn't make his major league debut until he was 27. I mean, that's fairly late. But let's look at Freddie in AA and Duran in AA. All right, so Freddie, 73 games back in 2021, 279 batting average, and a 116 weighted runs created plus. And then the next season, he made the step up to AAA. Duran this year, like I said, 42 games in AA, 299 batting average with that 144 weighted runs created plus. I am leaning towards, I think that Duran could be the next Freddie Fermin-esque story, kind of a late blooming catcher who just found the right fit, found the right change of scenery and things like that. So I don't know if he is in the Omaha lineup right now. Let me pull up their X account because I forget who told me, but someone told me that the Storm Chasers tend to wait until about an hour before first pitch before they announce their lineup, which is good and it's bad. He is in the Omaha lineup right now, so we'll see how he performs today. Jeremy, I know this is like a move on the margins and probably isn't going to change the ceiling for the Royals, but I mean, it's always nice to have these quality role players that could be like Freddie Fermin, right?
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to complain about the Royals giving him a shot to see what all he can do. I will kind of maybe pour a little cold water on you.
Yeah.
Comparing those AA stats, a couple things that stand out to me. Freddie Fermin was walking at a 9.6% rate, whereas Duran is at a 4.4% rate.
Yeah.
And swinging strike percentage, Fermin had a 9% swinging strike percentage, and Duran has a 12.8%.
That's a big
That
jump.
doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a pretty big difference
Yeah, it
in
is. You're
swinging
right.
strikes when it comes to baseball players. I also would, the BABIP is different, 310 for Freddie in 2021 and 353 for Duran this year. So
Okay.
I do wonder if there is potentially an element of he's getting a little bit lucky, or he's just kind of in a hot streak and he could cool off in a hurry. Also, Freddie Fermin hadn't bounced around 3 organizations.
Yeah.
The Royals had believed in him for long enough that he's stuck in Kansas City the whole time.
Yeah.
So just like, I'm not saying Durant can't be good. I'm not going to declare him the next Freddie Fermin until it kind of happens. Also,
Absolutely.
for what it's worth, I wasn't ready to call Freddie Fermin the next Freddie Fermin until kind of this year. They brought him up last year. He'd hit so well in the Winter League, and I was like, all right, but is this for real? He's old for his levels, et cetera, et cetera. And it ended up working out. So these things happen, and we'll see. I'm certainly rooting for the guy. Like I said, I'd rather have a third catcher who isn't Austin Nola, and if that could be Rodolfo Duran, while we're waiting for other guys like Carter Jensen and Blake Mitchell to finish, their levels and move up, then that's fine. Also, probably don't want Carter Jensen and Blake Mitchell playing backup or third catcher for the Royals. We probably want them to come up when they're ready to start.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the point where we're at in the catching tree for the Royals, is we just need to start identifying those next backup or bridge options. No offense to guys like Cale Emshoff and Luca Tresh, but like, I'm not seeing their MLB floor as an MLB starter, if that makes sense. Like they are kind of going to be those role players, those spot starters, and there is value in that. And at the end of the day, you're still a Major League Baseball player. But, you look at Carter Jensen, you look at Blake Mitchell, they could be the next everyday catcher, the next guy who is catching, behind the plate every single day with a positive bat in the lineup. That's a real thing that I'm not saying we have to, move on from Salvi next year or nothing like that, but Salvi ain't getting any younger. So we do need to keep an eye on what the Royals are doing behind the dish in the system.
And I will also throw out there that even this year, Salvi's been getting more playing time at first and designated hitter than ever before. I would expect that trend to continue as long as he's under contract in Kansas City, because he wants to play every day, and he probably can't catch every day like he used to. And he probably shouldn't, even if he could. He probably shouldn't have, even when he did. So, there's room for Salvi and somebody else on this team, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And especially just looking at what Freddie's done this year. So we're on game number 73, and Freddie's only played in 42. Guy already has 1.2 FWAR on the season, having a career year at the plate. Like, we just know, so many teams would love to have this depth behind the dish that the Royals have right now. I get it. We don't have any depth in the outfield, but sure as hell got it behind the plate. So there is value there.
Fermin is basically the perfect backup catcher.
He is.
He is almost elite defensively. He's throwing guys out at like a 40% rate. We've also seen him gun guys down trying to take the extra base on bad throws to home twice.
Mm-hmm.
And he if he hadn't had to come into Friday night's game, he would be in the middle of a 10-game hitting streak with and only 1 hit per game, but a couple extra base hits, a couple walks in there. He's getting the job done as a backup catcher. Would I want Freddie Fermin to be my starter? Not really.
Yeah.
It wouldn't kill me if he was my starter, as long as the rest of the lineup was better than the current iteration of the lineup. Having him as a backup is just great. And I hope the Royals have shown a tendency in the past to kind of move on from backup catchers, which in a way makes sense when they hit arbitration, because that salary starts going up and it's like, oh, I can just replace you with somebody else from the minor leagues for Major League minimum. That makes sense. Freddie Fermin might be worth keeping it through his arbitration years. He's been that good. Of course, he's also already 28, so I don't know how long he's going to be able to do it either.
True. Very, very true. I think at the end of the day, we can all agree that the Royals have Freddie Fermin under contract for the best playing years that he has, and the guy's an absolute spark plug coming in off the bench and spelling Salvador Perez when needed. So really, really love what he is doing. Jeremy, we're going a little long on this episode, and that is that is my doing. Do you have anything else on the Royals before we get to reviews and the Q&As?
I want to go ahead and throw a shout out for Garrett Hampson. I almost included him in my 12 things to talk about in last night's game, and then I decided to drop him for something else. He had a really great defensive play, and he hit the leadoff triple in the 7th inning that sparked the 2 runs to give him that breathing room for the rest of the game. I've defended him all year, most of the year, by saying he's here to offer speed and defense. Yeah. And then I said, well, he's not doing either of those things right now, so maybe they don't need him. But last night he showed us some speed and defense. So I'm okay with keeping him for a little bit longer.
Yeah, for sure. And that's yet another player who is just really, patience has been his value. Okay, because I'm not sold on Garrett Hampson ending the season in Kansas City, but the guy has been very valuable in every facet of the game in the past couple of weeks. And baseball is all about, what have you done for me lately? And he's done a lot for the Royals lately.
And he made it into the Team Affinity Chapter 1, Season 2, Chapter 1 Team Affinity for the Colorado Rockies this year in MLB The Show. And he's been hitting like bonkers for me. So I'm like, yeah, Garrett Hampson, let's go.
Hell yeah. Love to hear it. Let's go ahead and get to y'all's Q&As real quick, because I asked another off-the-wall question. Jeremy and we are looking to get some more guests on the podcast. We've been wheeling and dealing. Zach Miller of Farm to Fountains is going to be joining us this coming Wednesday. And then, like we said, Greg Walker, who used to be on every single episode. We didn't ostracize him. I promise. That was a subconscious, like, oh shit, we haven't had Greg on in a while. We'll have him on in the coming weeks. But I asked y'all, are there any guests you would like us to have on? And if so, what do you want to know from them? Honey over here answered the question and said herself. So there is that.
All right.
That's your question for tonight.
What?
Do you miss having Honey on the podcast?
There we go. See, she just made her return to the podcast. All right, there you go. So y'all know the Q&A for Spotify tonight. Do you want Honey back on the podcast? But y'all answered with some really good ones. Aaron Bailey answered Denny would be awesome. Eisenberg was a home run hire for either of them. Why and how did they get into broadcasting? And thoughts on 2014-15 teams versus this team. I think Denny Matthews would be awesome to have on and chat with him about the winning Royals baseball teams. I really do. Royal Rupert had a good one. Andrew Hoffman, who is a pitcher with the Omaha Storm Chasers. He's kind of had an up and down 2024, I will say. But, just asking how he's feeling and what have you and the coaches done to improve your fastball. So thank you, Rupert, for that really in-depth question there. And then lastly, Fistifer says, I want to hear from Rex Hudler. I'd like to hear his thoughts on why the team has improved so much since last year. Go ahead.
I literally just DM'd Jacob while he was reading these answers and said, we got to get Rex. We got to see if we can get Rex. Rex is like, I feel confident that if we can find Rex, he will agree to come on the podcast with us. Probably would have to be an off-season thing. I'm sure he's very busy during the regular season. It would be the pinnacle of my podcasting career if we could interview Rex Hudler.
For sure. Well, I would agree with that. Like that is the next level up. Have I just been missing for years that his nickname is the Wonder Dog?
Oh yeah, I don't remember where that came from, but that's been his nickname for as long as I've known him.
I need to ask him the story behind this because that is certainly a very niche nickname is how I would say that.
He is one of those guys that when he tells a story, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And he's had a long, varied baseball career, which gives him a lot of interesting stories in a way that, like, if you ask superstars, they had, I think a lot of them kind of had bland careers. Whereas Rex Hudler's been all over the place in all kinds of bizarre circumstances. And so we definitely got to get him on and see what kind of great stories we can get from him.
My goodness. And I'm sure there are some gems that we could pull out of him. One last thing before we get to our reviews. As always, you are missing out if you're not subscribing to Annie Rogers' newsletter. She has, she hasn't taken a step back. I want to clarify that. But like, I haven't seen as many newsletter entries in the past, month or something. But that's because she's in the dog days of the season. She's got the beat and things going on today.
There's a lot of just normal articles she's got to be writing because the team's good and it's the middle of the season.
What? I'm sorry, Jeremy. This is a new thing for me. Okay, the Royals actually being good past April, so we're in uncharted territory here.
Yeah, it's been a few years for me since I was still regularly watching Royals games this late in the year.
True. But all in all, she just put out a piece about 30 minutes ago talking about Kyle Isbell, some good quotes on the trade deadline approaches from the Royals. So you will want to go check that out. And then talking about Seth Lugo's 10th win of the season and why that is so important. But I'll leave you all to go read that and check it out. You can subscribe. Like MLB.com has a newsletter option, and you just click on Royals Beat, and that'll deliver her newsletter to your email inbox whenever she puts something out. Jeremy, I need you to start off with tonight's Royals review because you put me on the spot last time, okay?
I did.
And I talked about Folgers coffee, okay? That is an unacceptable review. Unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our off days. I'll let you wear the golden sombrero for that one, but I'll give you a break today. So today I'm actually going to do kind of a maybe traditional review.
Okay.
I've got 2 baseball articles that I want everyone to read.
Oh, nice.
The first one is on The Athletic from Rustin Dodd and Zach Meisel, and it's called Around Bobby Witt Jr., Royals Build a New Culture and Enter MLB's Modern Era. And because it's Rustin, for those of you who remember when he was the beat writer for the Royals, it is tremendously well written, and there's a lot of really good information in there that several things I didn't know, so there's probably a bunch in there that a lot of people don't know, or maybe I just don't know things. I guess that's also possible. But it's really good. I hope you'll all give that a read, and then I will also give you from Fangraphs, maybe the launch angle revolution wasn't really about launch angle, by Davey Andrews. So that article is very interesting to me because it posits, kind of the headline there. So if the launch angle revolution wasn't about launch angle, what was it about? And he kind of goes through, I really hope you'll read it, but he kind of goes through and proves to hit the ball in the air, you have to hit the ball further in front of the plate because that's when your bat is going back up, right?
Yeah.
That's when you get your uppercut. But that's also not just when you're going to hit the ball in the air. It's also when the bat has been traveling for the longest and therefore is going as fast as it's going to get. You're getting closer to your peak bat speed at that point. So you're hitting the ball harder. And he's got a bunch of data to go through and kind of prove his thesis. And I found it very fascinating. And it's definitely a different way of thinking about hitting than I've been doing, certainly, and I think a lot of people have been doing. I don't know how many MLB teams were already kind of in on this. I'm sure some of them were.
Yeah.
But as fans and as analysts, I think a lot of us were behind on this one, maybe. He makes a really compelling case. And that one's free. So you don't got an excuse not to read that one.
Yeah.
Go check that out.
Yeah, definitely. It's I was joking around with Jeremy earlier on. I think it might have been on the last episode talking about like it's not theathletic.com anymore. It's NewYorkTimes.com/theathletic.
Yeah.
Still, no matter the domain, still great stuff. Just very informative things on any sport you really want to look at over at The Athletic. And a lot of former Kansas City guys still write for that site. So definitely want to go check them out.
Andy McCullough still writes over there too.
Yeah,
and,
he does.
And he promised if the Royals keep winning, he'll start writing more stuff about them. So,
woo, let's go. All right, Royals. That's a great motivation to keep winning.
Maybe we'll get an update on Kyle Zimmer.
I think Andy's tired of answering that question or finding new ways.
He was tired of answering that question before he left the Star.
I think right now it's on Jalen Thompson and Annie Rogers to answer what the heck's going on with Asa Lacy. Like that's the new flavor of the month, unfortunately. My review real quick tonight is on a documentary on Netflix called Remembering Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder, if that name rings a bell, his most famous role is inarguably as Willy Wonka. Also in some other amazing movies, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, things like that. A very good look into its focus is on his career and then his life, which I enjoy. I get the whole chronological order, he was born in this town and things like that. No, it grabbed my attention talking about his career and then it went into his life. So I enjoyed that. Interviews with Alan Alda, Mel Brooks, has a lot of voiceover from Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder as well, which really added to the depth of this. Unfortunately, Wilder passed away in 2016, so this is a lot of older stuff. Still just a great documentary and a great look into why he was so well known and integral in his time in Hollywood. Go check that out. It's streaming on Netflix and it's called Remembering Gene Wilder. All right, Jeremy, anything else before we go watch the game? We're about 5 minutes behind first pitch right now, unfortunately.
That actually sounds like a documentary I might be interested in. I might have to check that one out.
Yeah, man, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, give me that link. Give me the link. There was another thing you mentioned that I wanted the link to as well. I don't remember what that was, but give me all your links. All your links. All your links belong to me, Jacob. There's an old meme for you. All right, there's baseball. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get on out of here. Worldsreview.com, place to go. All of our social media links are down in the podcast description below. You are missing out on a ton of good content if you're not following us on social media, so go amend that issue right now. Once again, his name is Jeremy Greco. I am Jacob Milham. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and until next time, go Royals!